everyone, it's Nina and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing a somewhat casual, cozy fall reading vlog. I have quite a few fantasy romance books I want to read in the next week or two that I thought I would bring you along as I get through them. And in general, I'm also going to do some stuff to kind of set the ambiance and really enjoy the fall season. Let's get right on into it and talk about the TBR for this video. I currently have 3 books I'm planning on reading and possibly a 4th depending on how long this vlog ends up going and over how many weeks I end up deciding to film this. The first one of those is the book I'm actually currently reading, which is Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. This is the sequel to Fourth Wing, which if you've been living under a rock is this insanely popular Dragon Rider focused adult fantasy. Both Fourth Wing and Iron Flame came out in 2023. And the 3rd book in the series, Onyx Storm, is coming out in January of 2025. And I knew at some point during this year I was going to want to read Iron Flame to kind of decide if I wanted to try and pick up Onyx Storm around its release date. I'll give my initial thoughts and how far I am in that book in a minute. But let's talk about the other books on my TBR. The next book I'm really hoping to be able to finish in this vlog is Sorcery and Small Magics by Micah Ducey. I have an e-arc of this book that I got through Orbit Books, and the release date for this book is, I believe, October 15th, so I'm really hoping that I can get this book finished before it releases. And this is a adult, queer, cozy fantasy romance. I usually have had a pretty good track record in finishing all of the arcs I've gotten before their release dates, and I don't know why, but I feel like I've been dragging my feet in terms of starting this one. Even though from the premise and everything, it sounds really good and very much up my alley. I have heard from some other early reviews that this book is a little bit more cozy fantasy focused over romance, and I do actually think I will prefer that because I do believe this is a start of a larger series, and I'm fine with having less romance in the first book if it means we kind of build up the world and the dynamic between the 2 main characters, and then have that be more of a payoff for later books in the series. So I'm very excited to see what this one is like. The other book I'm really excited to hopefully read in this vlog is Quicksilver by Callie Hart. This has been the hot fantasy romance on BookTok and BookTube lately, and I've seen so many people give this book 5 stars. I watch a very wide variety of BookTube content creators. Some people that are much more heavily fantasy romance focused, and then other people that are a little bit more like me and read the occasional fantasy romance but have other genres that they love just as much. And it feels like pretty much everyone, whether they're a seasoned fantasy romance reader or not, has really loved this book. So that gives me really high hopes that I'm going to enjoy this, because I really only read fantasy romance every once in a while, and a lot of the times the ones I pick up, even ones that are really popular, tend to be misses for me. But I'm really hoping that I will like this one. I think I'm going to have to buy the ebook through Apple Books, which is only $6 or something, because I'm pretty sure the indie cover that's kind of the discrete cover without the man on it is currently not available through Amazon because it actually just has been picked up to be traditionally published. So I'm probably going to read the ebook of this when I get to it. Actually, a little bit unfortunately is at least the 3 books I'm planning on reading are all books I'm going to be reading either as audiobooks or ebooks, which is probably not very good for my physical TBR. And I think the last book I'll talk about is the one I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get to, so this might be the only time you hear me talk about it for this vlog. But that is Swordcrossed by Freya Marske. This comes out on October 8th, and I have it pre-ordered from Barnes & Noble. But I'm super excited to check this out. As I talked many times on my channel, I really like the Last Binding trilogy from Freya Marske. So I'm excited to see what she can do in terms of world building and character dynamics in a standalone fantasy romance. So yes, those are all the books on my TBR so far. Now let's move into talking about the one book I have started, which is Iron Flame. I am about 25% of the way through this, and I'm listening to the original version of the audiobook, not the dramatized one, although depending on when my hold comes up, I might end up getting the dramatized one for the second part, which I can get through Hoopla. I also have an ebook, which I'm probably going to be switching to when I read a little later today. But overall, in terms of my thoughts, I am actually really liking this book. I feel like I had gone into this book hearing nothing but bad things, even from people that really loved Fourth Wing. Just constantly saying that Violet and Xaden fight the whole time, that the book is really meandering and super long. And so far I've only gotten maybe tiny glimpses of the problems of this book. But for the most part, I'm having a lot of fun. I feel like this book is honestly fixing a lot of the flaws that Fourth Wing had. In terms of the fact that the part of Fourth Wing that I really dislike is the first third of the book when Violet isn't bonded to one of her dragons. I feel like Violet is much more annoying. She also just can't really catch any breaks in that beginning section when she's training. But as soon as she gets Tairn and Andarna, I feel like the plot really picks up and I really, really love the dynamic she has with her dragons. I love Tairn. He's like my favorite character. I just really love his like gruff, angry dad persona. And I just feel like with this book, we've really like hit the ground running in continuing all of the things that I really enjoyed from the end of Fourth Wing. I also feel like at the same time, I forgot a lot of things since it's been like over a year since I read Fourth Wing, but I'm slowly getting back into it and like learning more about the world and kind of remembering all of the side characters. I feel like for me, the thing that takes a book from like good to great is if I start to love all the side characters in the book as much as I like the main characters. And I think when I read Fourth Wing, Violet and Xaden were definitely one of my least favorite parts. And even though there are some things I don't really like about Violet or Xaden, I feel like I am starting to like grow in my love and enjoyment of all of their friend group. And I do really like it in terms of like Violet having her friend group, Xaden having his friend group, and them kind of initially being very much at odds with each other. And then slowly as the two of them get together, the groups of friends are also starting to mix together and work together, which is really cute to see. So yeah, that's my thought on Iron Flame so far. I'm really, really hoping that the rest of the book goes as well as this first like 25% has been. And I know that this book ends on like a huge cliffhanger that a lot of people were completely like shocked by. So I'm excited to see what the rest of this book ends up holding. I think for the rest of the day, I'm going to read more of Iron Flame and then possibly start Sorcery and Small Magics. And I'll probably come back to you tomorrow when I have another update. So it's now the next day, so I thought I would give you another reading update. Starting off, we'll talk a little bit more about Iron Flame. I actually don't think I've read very much more since I talked to you guys yesterday. However, I did do something kind of related to that, in that yesterday when I was out running some errands, I ended up stopping by a new-ish indie bookstore. I'd been there a couple times before, but in general, I hadn't found anything that I really wanted to buy. I feel like their selection tends to lean more into just like general bestsellers, which I like books that I think are a little bit more off the beaten path, so I had never found anything I wanted to buy until yesterday, because I had remembered that recently the special edition paperback of Fourth Wing had come out, and this isn't a Barnes & Noble special edition. I think just all of the like first print runs of this are having this special design sprayed edge, as well as some additional chapters that are from Xaden's POV. And I had seen this initially during like the Barnes & Noble pre-order sale that was a couple weeks ago, and I was thinking I might want to pick it up, but I was like, I'm going to hold off until I read a little bit of Iron Flame to kind of like decide overall if I want to continue reading the books in the Empyrean series. Because even though I gave Fourth Wing 4 stars and I liked it, I'd heard so many bad things about Iron Flame that I was very hesitant in terms of like my long-term enjoyment of this series. But considering how much I'm really liking Iron Flame, I feel like I am at least going to like commit to the series enough to want to buy the eventual paperback special edition of that book. So I decided to go ahead and buy the special edition of the Fourth Wing paperback while it was still in stock. I also vastly prefer the like gold on black design of the paperbacks versus the black on gold design that's on the hardbacks. And I just like paperbacks more in general. I think also now that I've committed to getting these versions, I'm not going to buy the like special edition of Onyx Storm. I just don't have a lot of space for special editions on my shelves to begin with, and I want my series to eventually all match. So I'm just going to commit to getting the paperback versions instead. But yes, I'm very excited that I got this. Definitely probably going to read the like additional content in this sometime soon. And maybe eventually I'll do a reread and tab out like some of the general like world building stuff so I can remember it for the long term. So that is my update in terms of like the Empyrean series. Now I thought I could talk about the other book I've been reading, which is Sorcery and Small Magics. I made it quite a bit of a ways into this book, so let me give you like a general summary and then I'll talk about my thoughts on it. This is an adult cozy fantasy romance that follows our main character, Leo Loveage. In this world, there's two different types of magicians, scribers and casters. Leo is a scriber, so he's basically a magician that can create spells, but then he needs a caster to be able to bring the spells to life. And Leo has kind of a playfully antagonistic relationship with this caster magician at his college named Sebastian Grimm, who he's kind of been playfully bullying since they started in school 5 years ago. They are now both in their final year of college and are paired together in an assignment for class. And during this assignment, Sebastian ends up kind of unwillingly casting a type of control spell onto Leo that makes it so Leo is like compelled to do anything that Sebastian orders him to. And it also makes Leo like feel incredibly ill whenever he's not nearby Sebastian. Since the two of them seemingly hate each other, they do not want this spell to like exist in the long term. So they're trying to work on a way to undo the spell. They also are trying to keep it very much on the down low because this type of like control magic is outlawed in their country. And this is part of the summary of the book, but they think that the best way to undo this magic is to head into this wild magical forest and try and find the fabled wizard that lives there. I am currently 37% of the way through this book. I'm literally in the middle of a chapter, so I honestly don't remember what number I'm at, but I am enjoying my time reading this so far. Initially, I was very much like, oh yeah, Leo is definitely the type of character archetype that I go for. Very much giving fail wife, very much a like forced cheeriness and jovial attitude to hide the fact that he's incredibly like self-loathing. And then Sebastian is this incredibly like by the book, straight-laced, like absolutely humorless character. So they're very much giving grumpy sunshine. In terms of where I'm at in the book right now, I think we are about to go on that quest into the magical wilderness. The beginning of the book has more so them being in class, finding out that they have this spell inflicted on the two of them, and then Leo trying to hide the fact that he feels the spell like pulling him towards Sebastian, and hiding the fact that he's been feeling ill whenever he's not around him. However, that has now come out, and Leo is basically spending his fall break at Sebastian's family farm. So there's a lot of like really cute forced proximity going on, and Leo kind of trying to wrap his head around this like new side of Sebastian as he learns more of his history versus the very gruff and mean persona that Sebastian has at school. For cozy fantasy though, I don't feel like this has been very ambiance forward. It has been very like humor forward, which I really enjoy. There definitely has been quite a few quirks in like the writing style with things that have just like kind of made me laugh. And I really enjoyed Leo as our main character, being in his head and kind of hearing all of the things he thinks. I can see like the inklings of the romance, but at the same time, I don't think it has been particularly pronounced either. Besides some glimpses, they have been pretty separate for the majority of the beginning section of the book. And I think now that we're really in the like forced proximity section, hopefully when they're going on this mission together, we'll start to see them bond and kind of like break down their barriers around the other person. So I'm really looking forward to that part of the book. But yeah, overall, it's been cute. I don't know if it's going to be like a long-term favorite, but depending on how the rest of the book ends up going, I definitely think I would be intrigued enough to pick up the rest of the series. So that is my reading updates for so far. I'm probably going to make a little bit more progress in Sorcery and Small Magics today. And then depending on how far I get in that, I think I might end up pivoting to starting another new book. Normally I wouldn't like to have 3 books going at once, but it's getting closer to the end of the month, so I kind of want to get a move on and finish more books before the end of the month ends up coming. I had a really slow start to the beginning of this month. I was just reading 2 adult fantasy romances that honestly were kind of like lingering like a bad odor. One of them I ended up even DNFing when I had gotten a good percentage of the way through. So I don't know, I feel like I need to make up for lost time and read more books that hopefully will all be enjoyable and that I'll like a lot. I think considering the track record I have going right now between Iron Flame and Sorcery and Small Magics, I am happy and I want to kind of like keep up that momentum in finding more good books. So yeah, that's my reading update for right now, and I will hopefully come back to you in the next couple days with my next update. So it is currently Friday night. I just got off work and I thought I would give you a big wrap up of basically everything I've read so far this week. The biggest thing I've been reading is I've made a lot of progress in reading Iron Flame. I currently am 60% of the way through, and I finished up part 1, which I think put me at like 54% of the way through. And I also had, during the week, also been listening to the standard audiobook that's done by Rebecca Soler. But that one I had checked out through Libby, and my hold is slowly running out. but then I realized that the dramatized audio was available in 2 parts through Hoopla, and I figured since I just finished off part 1, maybe I could try and read the dramatized version for part 2. So that is what I did today. I started listening to the dramatized version. I think I'll start off by doing my like first impressions about listening to a dramatized audio, because this is my first time trying out one of those types of audiobooks. And so far I think it's interesting. Definitely not something I'm used to. And I do think that because I'm listening to it like halfway through, I'm not as familiar with all of the different characters and like the actors that are playing them. So it's taking me a little bit of time to get used to and like kind of pinpoint every single person's voice. Whereas obviously they would have their names said a lot more frequently in the standard version. It also was an interesting choice because the start of part 2 like opens up on a sex scene. So there was just like a man moaning in my ear when I was trying to go to work today. And I was like, I don't know if I can do this right now. But then I did end up doing it and I like pushed through and listened to more of the audiobook. So now I'm at 60% of the way through, which I think is around chapter 40. And my overall thoughts is that I am really enjoying this book a lot more than I had initially thought I would go into expecting to like. Yes, this book is very long. And when I finished part 1, I was like, how are we only 54% of the way through this book? It really does feel like so much has happened in the first half. But honestly, I'm totally fine with it being very long, and I am enjoying and feel like pretty much every scene does kind of have a place in the overarching story. Even if some of them are a little bit repetitive, there's never been a point where I have thought, I wish this scene had been entirely cut. Maybe a couple moments when it could have been edited down some, but overall I just feel like I'm really enjoying this book so far. I do think the dramatized audio is significantly shorter than the standard audio, so if I do end up continuing to listen to this new version of the audiobook, I think I'll be able to get it done a little bit faster. I'm trying to think of like specific things in the book that I've really enjoyed. Obviously, like I said before, I really love Tairn. There was a scene where he was defending Violet, and it was very much giving She Said No Pickles, which I think is really cute. And also in the second half, we've seen a little bit more of Andarna, and the narrator that she has for the dramatized version is really cute, very like bright and spunky. So I think that which really fits her character. So I'm very excited to see more of them in the next half of the book. Now let's move on to talking about Sorcery and Small Magics. I currently am at chapter 20, which means I am 58% of the way through this book. So about the exact same placement for both the books that I'm reading. However, I kind of got up to that point on Sunday and then basically I put the book down for the last couple days since I've been focusing on listening to the audiobook for Iron Flame instead. But I definitely think I'm going to try and finish this book in the next 2 days. So I'll have it done by the end of the weekend. I'm trying to remember all the stuff that happened in this book that I wanted to talk to you guys about. First thing I definitely wanted to mention is that if you like Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, you will definitely like this book. Specifically in the Unquiet Woods, which is the place that Leo and Grimm have gone. It gives me a lot of similar energy to the Emily Wilde series. There's a lot of like deceptively dangerous, weird little creatures in this magical wood that are very similar to some of like the characters and fae that we meet in the Emily Wilde series. Very much similar energy in terms of like the inventiveness of all of the little strange magical creatures. And in the section that I'm in right now, we finally are in the wood. They're working together. They're trying to find the witch that's going to lift the curse. And they definitely are still pretty staunchly in the like rival side of rivals to lovers. So at least for my personal taste, it is going a little bit more slowly than I normally like. However, I think this is going to be a romance that's very much going to blossom and develop over the course of the entire trilogy, and not just for this first book. So I guess thinking about the book in terms of like the grander scheme overall, it does make a little bit of sense. And there definitely have been quite a few moments of the two of them interacting and like genuinely connecting when they're doing Leo's spell songs that are really like romantic and beautiful. So overall, I am really enjoying my time reading this. A very easy book to pick up with a lot of like really sweet, cozy vibes. So those are my thoughts on the books I'm reading right now. Now I actually wanted to take a little break and open up a package I got, because in the last couple days I got my September Illumicrate, which I do know what the book is in this package, but I thought we could open it up on camera because I don't know any of like the customizations that they did for this one. Did that work at all? No. Oh, that was very anticlimactic. Ooh. Whoa, I didn't realize they did an entirely redesigned cover. Try to get this guy out without making a huge mess. Whoa, this is beautiful. Okay, so the book they had for September is A Dark and Drowning Tide by Alison Saft. I know this author is quite popular. She has quite a few other books that I think also came out in different book boxes in the last year or so. And this one was definitely a book that I was interested before it had come out. I'd seen it on NetGalley and was considering requesting an arc of it. It very much is giving me like Lesbian, A Study in Drowning, which I don't really like that book, but I definitely think maybe the one of the things that could improve upon it is to have more lesbians. And I also think this is adult versus that book being YA. And this new redesign cover they did is so incredibly beautiful. And then for the sprayed edges, we kind of have this like almost pondscape with like the ripples in the water and then fish on the bottom. And it's kind of the same on the top and bottom. And then the end papers are this like sea dragon design. So the naked hardcover actually has the cover illustration from the standard version. And the art on the back is kind of like kelpy looking evil sea horse. Very, very beautiful. I really, really like the design of this one. I'm glad they did something a little bit different for both like the naked hardcover design as well as doing an entirely redesigned cover, because I think that's always really nice. Okay. Okay, it is currently Saturday morning and I have made more progress in reading Sorcery and Small Magics. I think I'm just about at 80% of the way through. I'm currently on chapter 26, so that means I have 5 chapters left until I'm done with the book. And so far I am enjoying this book, although there have been some developments in the recent chapters that I kind of feel like we should be a little bit further along in the emotional journey of Leo and kind of like him accepting his flaws and sort of the problems that he has with his magic. That I feel like the kind of like excursion we're about to go on is a little bit out of place. And I don't know, I feel like just some other elements about the development of Leo and Sebastian's romance. It hasn't been maybe what I would have done with the characters, although I am still at the same time enjoying some of the things that we have kind of found out about them, as well as some other things that we found out in relation to the curse. So yeah, overall, I am enjoying it still. I think it's probably going to end up being around a 4-star because I find it fun. I think it's engaging. I think it gives all of like the perfect cozy fantasy vibes that you would want from this type of book. But it's definitely not gripping me emotionally or like really intensely in terms of like the characters themselves. I think that my opinion of them probably would change by the time I read like the 2nd or 3rd book in the series, since I do tend to grow to be more bonded with characters as a series will go on. But in terms of the first book just as a standalone, I think a 4-star is probably a good rating for it, unless something really terrible or really great happens in the last like 5 chapters of this book. So that's what I spent the majority of my morning doing. However, I did also spend some time reading the new like edition of Fourth Wing with the like exclusive chapters that are from Xaden's POV, and I am really enjoying them. However, I did realize that this edition in particular doesn't have the like bonus chapter that's in the audiobook, which is set at like the very, very end of Fourth Wing. So that's a little bit of a letdown. I'm assuming the standard hardback and maybe the holiday edition had that like additional chapter, but this paperback version does not have it. Instead, it has like 3 different chapters that are from Xaden's POV. And I read one of those ones that I think was new to just this edition, and I really did like it. So I'm excited to read the other 2 chapters that I think originally were from a different special edition. I don't really like that additional chapters and like bonus content is spread out so much between all of the different editions of a book. I think that at the very least, Rebecca Yarros should like have it on her website or in like a newsletter of some kind. I think that at the very least, authors should like put all of like the bonus chapters and like additional content on their website, even if they want to do it like a couple months after a book's release to incentivize people to go out and buy the books first, but then still have it kind of all archived somewhere collectively so that like diehard fans will be able to find it on their main website. I don't know, I just personally don't like it when they're spread out across so many different editions. That's my gripe about like the edition situation, but content-wise, I love it. I really do like reading from Xaden's perspective, and I like seeing more of his bond with Sigale, which we don't get a ton of in the like regular version when it's from Violet's POV, because she specifically says in Ironflame that she very, very rarely talks to Sigale directly. So we don't really hear a lot of Sigale's personal voice come through, but obviously from Xaden's POV, she's in his head a lot more, so we can kind of hear her thoughts and the way that she speaks to him, which I really like. I think it's very cute. I love their dynamic just like overall. That was one of my favorite things from Fourth Wing, so getting more of that I really enjoy. So those are all my reading updates for right now. I'm definitely going to try and finish Sorcery and Small Magics later today. So I'll probably come back to you tomorrow with my last update on that book. So it is now the next day, and yesterday night I finished Sorcery and Small Magics. I think I am going to keep my 4-star rating for this book. However, I wasn't a huge fan of the last 5 chapters, with sort of the final big confrontation and the wrapping up of the overall plot. I think the biggest thing is that I do feel like this book was very, very slow burn, and that's probably just a me thing. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of slow burn books, and the fact that the kind of love confession was never explicitly said, and it's probably going to be something that's carried over into the next book. Just overall how subtle the romance elements in this book were, I was a little bit disappointed in. I guess I went into this book with maybe more expectations of that being a little bit more prevalent, but it's definitely something that seems like it's going to carry over into the second book in the series. And I guess I would have liked a little bit more of that more explicitly in the last section of this book. Whereas again, it definitely seems like it's being kind of left up in the air to later be developed in the rest of the series. But I still really enjoyed my time reading this. I think it was very cute. And I definitely will be reading the next book when it ends up coming out. I actually have not made any more progress in Iron Flame. I'm planning on reading a little bit more of that later today. So it probably will be a random weeknight this week when I will be able to talk to you guys and give my next update. Okay, so in classic fashion, it's been a little while since I gave my last update. It's actually been around 2 weeks since I last talked to you, which definitely wasn't intended, but last weekend I had my birthday party, so I didn't film at all. And then over the course of the week, I did want to do some updating, but I just have been pretty busy with work. But I thought I would now give you my final thoughts since I have finished Iron Flame. And I loved this so much. I think I'm honestly going to give it 5 stars. Yes, I definitely was feeling the length by 70% of the way through, but I still had just so much fun. I feel like so much has happened in the story, and there were just so many good character and plot moments. Just a lot to chew on for future books and for fan theories. Honestly, I liked it so much, I started doing a huge info dump of stuff, telling my wife everything that happened. And as I was telling her about it, I did mention that there was a novel-length fanfic that is the entirety of Fourth Wing from Xaden's POV. And she was like, so are you going to read that next? And I have not, but let me know if I should, and specifically if I should read it for a video, because I am more than willing to read fanfics for any reason, but especially so that I could talk to you guys about it for a video. So I think I'm going to end the vlog here. In this video, we ended up reading 2 different books. The first one was Sorcery and Small Magics by Micah Ducey, which I gave 4 stars, and the other one was Iron Flame, which, like I just said, I'm going to give 5 stars. I'm pretty pleased with both of these books. I'm glad I checked both of them off of my TBR, and I'm very excited for what the rest of the series for both of these books will hold in the future. But that is going to be it for me today. If you guys enjoyed this video, consider liking, commenting, and subscribing if you aren't already. Considering following me on the Storygraph if you'd like to see my reading updates in real time, as well as following me on my Bookstagram, which I will link in the description. And I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!